Hi, I'm Paul Crossman, and I've worked with such labels as Hope Recordings and Distinctive. I'm a course developer and instructor here at Point Blank, and I've developed the Mixing Dance Music in Logic module, which is part of our online Logic diploma. This video series will give you an insight of what you can learn on the course with me. In the second part of this track deconstruction, I'm going to take a look at the synths and effects that are being used. So the first sound that I want to take a look at is this one down here called Running Sixteenths. So let me just solo this up. It's just providing a pulse, a kind of energy to the track. It's sitting there really nicely, kind of just doing its thing. So let's just take a look at this in the mixer. Now, initially, the stem was completely dry, and if I just solo this up, let's take the effects off a minute, and solo it up. And you can hear it's very mono, and it's very dry sounding. So what I've done is just added a little bit of a low cut here. And then I've made use of Delay Designer with a couple of taps, great plugin, to provide not just a rhythm, but to provide stereo width. So let me just bring this in. Now this is very subtle, only a small amount of this is actually being used. But it just adds a really nice rhythm and width to the sound. Now, you can also hear some other sounds going on with this. Now, this was one of those decisions. One of the things about mixing is, actually there's no rules. So, if something works, then that's absolutely fine. Now, with that in mind, there is a white noise shaker here, which initially was part of the drum mix, but actually, this is sitting and running alongside this running 16th sound. So you can hear. So what I've done is I've grouped these together and we've applied some processing. So for example, on the white noise itself, use the direction mixer here. Let me just bring that sound back in again. And it's just sitting alongside, just bringing in this spread a bit. There's some really nice movement on the sound itself. And then I'm using a gate just to kind of bring the rhythm back into control a little bit. It just tightens the sound up a little bit. Now what I'll do, let me just find another section where this is running. Let's go back to the beginning here. Here we go. Now this noise gate is essentially just tightening that sound up really nicely. Now I've got a compressor going over all of the two sounds here. You can see that we're sidechaining it using a vintage FET. There's a full range of compressors going on within this track. And if I bring the two in together, like so, you can see that they blend together really nicely. Now, because of the nature of the sound, it is pretty samey the whole way through. So to add interest, I've added a reverb to it that is also being used on the synths. So if we come down here, for example, you can see that I'm using a send. Let me just bring this over a second. And you can hear the effect coming in now. And I've got the return of this effect automating. So I'm using this all the way through the track to provide interest. So, let me just come back into this, bring it all back in again. The next stage is to take a look at the actual melodics, the synths that are providing the melodic element to this other than the bass. So the main one of these is over here. This square layer. Now, on its own, very dry, and it's very mono. Now, I decided to keep the mono. I want it cutting through. I want it to sit right in the centre of the mix, above the drums. So to provide width, give it a bit more interest, I've created a stereo bus over here. Let me bring it in. And we've got a range of plugins going on here. Let me just bring this in on its own. First off, just a gentle bit of EQing. There's quite a considerable low cut here, but I've just dropped this down at around about 5k, just so that these synths themselves can cut through. And then I followed that with the Space Designer. Now, the Space Designer here is, this is great, use of the volume envelope here, just to shorten and provide this reverb. It's quite a long reverb, you can see it 10 seconds. But then I've added a filter envelope to it. So if I take the filter envelope off, and this is adding a really nice movement to the sound. And then we have a compressor, which is side chaining. There's a lot of this kind of rhythmical stuff works really well within dance music. And I'm following this up with a couple of other plugins. A compressor just to keep a grip on everything. You know, this idea of side chaining reverb buses works really well in the context of a dance track. And then I've also got this stereo tool here, which again I'm just using for a little bit of width overall. So let me just bring that in with this first sound. So you can hear the sound very much in the centre, and then all this really nice information going on and around it. Let me go back to the synth bus itself. And listen. And we have this second sound here. It's sitting alongside the square here. And I've made use of the Haas effect with this sample delay. In other words, sample delay on the sound. Let me just bring this up on its own. Let me bypass it. If you're listening on headphones, you'll really notice the difference on that. Now, because of the width of sounds like this, I've also added a gain plugin to the master output here, which I've then monoed, just so that I can check stereo mono compatibility to make sure that sounds aren't disappearing. Let me bring these in together. So I'm making full use of this stereo feel for these synth sounds. Now let's just go and have a listen to the next one along here. Now this is a very, you can kind of, it's almost spitting. Just take these off a minute. And I actually thought to accentuate that, I've made use of an enveloper just to pull in a little bit of the release on it. And I'm compressing it with a bit of limiting as well, just so it cuts through. And then the obligatory low cut here. So if we bring them all in together now, right at the end you'll hear them all. And the way that they all sit together. So bring everything back in again. Now the effects in this track are very, very simple. So for example, we have a reverb clap. And then the rest we have this, you know, very simple again, but I think simplicity is generally the key. Let me just bring this in. And then we've got the reverse effect sitting here as well. So again, what I can do is if I bring these together, I can make use of the track stack. I've got a summing stack for them, and these are my effects. And this gives me kind of really nice control over all of these effects together. So let's just bring in everything together. So this short series of deconstructions gives you an indication of the kind of thing that goes on the Mixing Dance Music with Logic course here at Point Blank.